Everybody loves a poem question. And remember, this is where strong words really, really matter because our odds of understanding the big picture of the poem are very, very low. We're not going to be able to put together the sentences from this poem that are 400 years old. We're going to need to understand it in little bits and pieces. That's the strong word strategy. Is there certain bits and pieces that matter more than others? So let's kind of see as we read what might make a difference. So we just need the main purpose. So just what kind of jumps out as being important as we read. Those hours that with gentle work did frame the lovely gaze where every eye doth dwell will play the tyrants to the very same, and that unfair which fairly doth excel. So something's lovely and then maybe bad. That's kind of what I get. I don't understand it completely, but it's good enough for now. And that unfair, for never resting time leads summer on to hideous winter and confounds him there. Sap checked with frost and lusty leaves quite gone, beauty oversnowed and bareness everywhere. Now look, there's enough words in that little piece there that you should understand what's going on, right? Summer is turning into hideous winter, bareness everywhere, leaves are gone. This is bad, guys. Something bad has happened. Maybe it started out good, right? Gentle work did frame lovely gaze, but something has shifted. Let's keep going. Then, were not summer's distillation left, a liquid prisoner pent in walls of glass, beauty's effect with beauty were bereft, nor it nor no remembrance what it was. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really understand that. Next part though, but flowers distilled, though they with winter meet, lose but their show, their substance still lives sweet. The most important word in any passage, I don't care if it's a 400-year-old poem, it's but. There's a but. But flowers distilled, though they with winter meet, so the winter, the bad thing, they're encountering that, they're meeting winter, lose but their show, their substance still lives sweet. That sounds pretty positive. So we're ending on some sort of positive note. So connotations really helping me out as they always do with poems, because we get a lot of adjectives, a lot of words that have that kind of clear meaning. And so let's just use that. Let's go to the choices and see what we get. I don't quite understand the poem, but I'm hoping that there are going to be strong words in the answer choices that will help me understand the poem, that will give me things to go looking for. And then if they are there, that might be a good sign of the choice being right. So choice A, to suggest that physical beauty is ultimately meaningless because it inevitably fades with the passage of time. So lots of strong words in that choice. Meaningless, inevitably, right? They do talk about time. It seems to be a big part of this. And so that does matter, right? So time, summer, winter. But those are some strong words. It's meaningless. It inevitably fades. Meaningless means it has no meaning whatever. Inevitably means it cannot be avoided. But yet at the end of this thing, I don't know, didn't we end on a positive note that the substance still lives sweet? So is it going to inevitably fade if it's still sweet at the end? That just seems wrong, right? This is very negative. Most of the passage is negative, but the strongest word in here is the but, and it makes a turn and it comes back as being positive. And I don't know, I'm very skeptical of a choice that has such strong definitive words like meaningless and inevitable, but also then is kind of the wrong connotation from where this poem ends. So I'll leave the choice because there maybe are some pieces of it that match up, but I'm skeptical of it for sure. B, to convey that certain methods of preservation can allow beauty's essence to survive temporal destruction. Well, beauty survive, strong words there. I mean, seems right? The substance still lives sweet. That sounds like it's staying alive, it's surviving. So, okay. Now, there are some phrases probably here that, you might have trouble with. Temporal destruction. That just means time. Time is destroying it. So temporal means having to do with time. So that kind of works as well. Preservation, methods of preservation. That's a little weird, but that's something I can go back and look for. We're talking about, here at the end, a liquid prisoner pent in walls of glass. So, I don't know, is it preserved in there? Beauty's effect with beauty were bereft, nor it nor no remembrance what it was, but flowers distilled, though they with winter meet, lose but their show, their substance still lives sweet. So is it being preserved? Maybe, and this is sometimes what we have to do is just be like, well, I don't know for sure. I'm not a Shakespearean expert, but I could kind of see it working, right? A method of preservation is this distillation thing. Maybe let's leave it in. I do love, though, connotation-wise, this seems to be more positive, which is where the passage is ending anyway. Let's look at C. To contrast the harsh realities of winter with the pleasant memories of summer's warmth and vitality? No. So here's the problem with this: this is very surface level, right? Yes, the poem does talk about summer and winter, but it's doing it to talk about bigger things, right? And so this is not a poem about the seasons. This is a poem about time. This is a poem about beauty, right? And so the summer winter thing is just one little piece of this, and you can kind of tell that like it's just this is, you know, there's always like a surface level reading of a poem, but you don't have to go deep to understand that something is a metaphor. So it is not contrasting winter with summer, and it's much more than that. It's about summer representing kind of youth and beauty, and winter representing, I guess, death and destruction. And then there's lots of stuff that kind of matches with that. But yeah, they're not describing an actual winter or an actual summer. So this, I'm hoping most of you understand that this is just a metaphor, but I do think a lot of you are so overwhelmed by the poem that you're like, oh, they did talk about winter and summer. So you kind of pick this thinking that's all there is. But notice there's no real connotation here. This would be like a mix. I don't know. I don't know. This is just so obviously wrong to me. D, to establish an extended metaphor, well, that sounds like what poems do, of time as a prison from which none can escape. Well, you had me in a place where I was kind of with you for a while, but none can escape? Again, this has this like strength, this definitiveness that I don't love. That's very negative, and it does seem like something escapes it, right? Substance still lives sweet. That seems positive. So saying none can escape is very, very strong and limiting, and you know, it seems like at least something is escaping it. So I don't love that. We could look at this time as a prison thing. I think this is a copy-paste trap because what they're trying to do is match the word prisoner here. But if we think of it, then the summer's distillation left, were not summer's distillation left a liquid prisoner pent in walls of glass. It sounds like the summer prisoner is almost like a good thing here, because the summer is the prisoner, and that's what's preserving it, right? And beauty's bereft with beauty were bereft, nor it nor no remembrance what it was. So if it wasn't imprisoned in the walls of glass, then it would die off. But flowers distilled, though they with winter meet, lose but their show, their substance still is sweet, but they survive in some way. So it's not that time is the prisoner. I think it's that the flower becomes the prisoner, and I think it's like a perfume bottle, and I think that that's what's going on, right? And so that is just misunderstanding the metaphor. But you know, some of you are going to pick things because you're like, oh, that word is there in the choice, it's in the passage. Maybe you're doing that a little bit with C. But yeah, no, neither of these choices is right, and I think it just comes down to the connotation. So at this point, yeah, B feels like the right answer because of the strong word "but." Right, this passage is absolutely very negative, but it ends on a positive note. Something is preserved, something still lives sweet. So I think method of preservation, I can kind of link that back to whatever this distillation is about. And then is beauty's essence surviving? Yes, substance still lives sweet. They're talking about it in a good way. So that means it's surviving. These words, meaningless, inevitable, they are just too strong. They're going too far. The whole point of this poem seems to be there's an exception, that things can survive the destruction of time in some way. Maybe not their full original way, but in some way they are surviving it. And to say that it is meaningless, to say that it is inevitable that it will fade, is to mean that there's no exceptions. And the poem ends with some sort of exception. So you got to recognize that. The poem is hard to understand, but the word "but" has the same meaning in 2025 when I'm making this video as it did in 1609 when Shakespeare wrote this poem. It's a contrast. Pay attention to contrast words.